So hi there, my name is Max. I'm co-founder of Big Picture and AI aficionado, and my talk today is about prompt engineering. And our hosts asked me to start punctually, so I'd start now. I'm into generative AI since the old times of GPT-2, but what would be interesting to me is how deep you are into prompt engineering. How would you assess your skills level regarding prompt engineering? Expert level? Nobody? Mid-level? Okay. Beginner? Okay. Not even started? Nobody. Okay, that's fine. So if you're ready for the journey, we will start right now. So what is a prompt? Is it just a few words you type into the ChatGPT playground like that? Basically, it's much more. It's something like the lingua franca, the common language of the AI area, not only from human to model, but IT system to model as well. They're using prompt templates. And yes, models can generate prompts for other models as well. They regularly do this, for instance, in agent AI systems. And why engineering? Here's the reason. If I post that question, I get on ChatGPT that answer. The question is quite easy and you don't have to read the complete answer, but it's sort of dull. Sometimes ChatGPT is a real bore. As an AI model, I don't have a real opinion and I'm not allowed to tell you, and it depends, and my knowledge ends with 2022 and so on. So the disclaimer is the message. But if you form the prompt a little bit different, 3 more sentences like that, you get a real rewarding dialogue. Take your time reading a little bit when talking about prompt engineering. It's not working without text, so you have to read a little bit in this talk. And as you see, the answer really gets crisp and is a little bit funny and is entertaining. It's just a little bit of prompt engineering. This is a role prompting with act as an intro. So this is for customer experience. But still, why prompt engineering? On the other hand, a well-crafted prompt can greatly help in solving problems. For instance, here on the left-hand side, this is standard prompting. If I ask that was an earlier model, not GPT-4 or something like that, but I think one of the earlier Da Vinci models, the model is not able to answer the question correctly. If I pose the question differently and force the model here with my prompt, that's the model input, to think about, to have a so-called chain of thought, then it is able to answer the question. So this is another reason why we do prompt engineering. So on the one hand, we can optimize the quality and the accuracy of responses. On the other hand, quantity-wise, we get more correct answers. And this is about hallucination control, to force the model not to hallucinate, but if it can't answer a question, really answer with something like IDK, I don't know, and not making up content. To handle cases like if there's not a fully qualified question that the model can ask back, how to handle off-topic questions, how to handle harmful user inputs, prompt injection control, and so on and so on. And that's problems we can solve with engineering. And yes, prompt engineering is mostly for AI-based systems, not for something you type into the ChatGPT interface or on a playground, but using in a real AI system. Let's dive into some techniques. I've brought you something like the core of a cheat sheet. For the first part of the prompt, look at the contents of the instruction, of the core instruction, and I'll start with the don'ts on the right-hand side. Act as a helpful AI, answer the user, answer the question, give me answer with text and things like that. We often have read that, everybody who has done a little bit in prompt engineering, even in professional contexts, I've even done it myself. Many of them just don't make much sense. Like act as a helpful AI, be friendly, be intelligent. Did the model ever yell at you, answer super rude, or did it try to be dumb? No, usually not. So you don't have to put something like that in a prompt, but get real, be descriptive, be specific. First thing on the left-hand side is tell something about the bot persona. We've seen that in the earlier example. You can tell them to role play. This absolutely makes sense if you have a chatbot talking to the user. We do it even when we have something like email classification, where we tell the model, be a super diligent clerk, looking at the email message and classify them after this and that scheme, and it works better. The second one is who's the audience? Whom are you talking to? And this helps to shape the model answer in a way that, for instance, primary school students can understand it, user of a cars can understand it without giving too much technical details and so on. The third thing is, I don't know exactly, can you read it? Oh, I'm so sorry. but then I will dive a little bit into it and give you the contents verbally. Yeah, the third thing is about the verb. Don't tell the model to answer. It will always answer. The model can't just not answer. So it will always give a response if it works well. Tell it to translate something, to list something, to classify something, to format something. So here again, to extract something, be specific. Tell the model something about the output format, what you want to have, not just text. It will always be text. If you're working with a large language model, it will not paint a picture or something like that. But tell them, I want a list of steps. I want Python code, a JSON, a number, a recipe, something like that. So be specific about the output format, about length and level of detail. Again, not something like few, short, which is not very specific, but tell them, I want 3 sentences. This doesn't always work, but you can try that. I want to have 10 examples of that kind. Be specific here as well. The tonality, again, not something like friendly, neutral, smart, intelligent, because here again, the model will always try to be friendly, smart, intelligent. This is not super specific, but tell, if you want to have a specific behavior, then you can say, be confident, be aggressive, moaning, sarcastic, witty, something like that, if that fits to you. Otherwise, you can just leave it out. So here for the cheat sheet, you don't have to use every part of that cheat sheet, but if you're working on a specific prompt, you can go it through and say, okay, this is important, that is important. Don't miss to define edge cases. How should the model respond if the data is missing? If in a bot situation, there's an off-topic question, if the user is using another language, should they respond in that language, in English as the standard, or not at all? You have to define that. Here's a little bit of an example. I think it's a little bit bigger in the text. If you bring all of these together, it could look like that. Here we do that for a tutoring body for primary students, helping them with biology. And the act as a patient tutoring body. You're a YAC named Yannick and a biology expert, and it can, in a playful way, interact then with the students. We are defining the user persona. We tell the model what to do. We say evaluate the questions at the answers of the user, and we define the desired output. Tell something about length and level of detail, about the tonality, and about edge case handling. For instance, if the kid says something like on a question, I don't know. The answer is not something factual, but I don't know. How do we react here? Do we tell the right answer? Do we try to lead the kid into the right direction? And that's things you have to define in your prompt. Whitelisting is super important here we don't want to talk or want the YAC to talk with the kids about sexuality, their teachers, Gaza, personal psychological problems or something else. Not because that's not important or so, but we are just not good at it. We are answering somewhere randomly on these kinds of issues. I'm skipping the next one and going just to the next technique, defining a detailed output format, which is usually good when you don't need, for instance, for a bot, just an output text. Define a strong binding format, something like, for instance, JSON, where you can easily work on the output. Many of you who build prompts for applications, I think, have already done something like that. What is important here again, define what to do with edge cases. For instance, data which doesn't fit into the structure. Something like missing fields, like how should the model bring it into a JSON? Is it empty? Is it null? Is it none? Should it skip the record at all? Define that. Otherwise, the model will decide and it's hard to scan it again. What may help as well, you can see it here. If we know the output will look like that, like the JSON, put the leading part, which doesn't change, like this, that, and the novel title, into your prompt. You're forcing the model to really answer in that JSON, so that's really good for edge case handling, and you save some of the output tokens, which will speed up the answer. This is an example from a project. The model doesn't always follow these instructions we have on the top. To sort of hammer it into the digital brain, you need some few shot examples. Not many, but 1, 2, 5, or 10, something like that. This can greatly improve the input. Here, the few shots example. The first one is a standard case where there is a normal question and a normal answer. Here's an off-topic case. For instance, in this manual bot for a cleaning robot, the user says something, should I invest into your company? This is usually something we don't want the bot for legal reasons and so on to answer. So we are trying to tell them how to handle these edge cases, these off-topic questions. If you're providing few shot examples, don't train the model like it's 2015, like providing a lot of similar examples, questions on speed, on consumptions, on dimensions, on range, but do something like here, that you have some standard cases, for instance, on technical data and how-to question, and then list all the important edge cases, like off-topic questions. How should it cope with user feedback? What should it do if it needs more information? What does it do in the case of on-topic question, but still it can't answer based on the material? For instance, if it's in a RAG system, that it is using material from an owner's manual or something like that, and can't answer that question, how should it behave? That's important. And if you do that, you need something like 5 to 10 examples, but they're really spread on the complete semantic space. Let's dive a little bit deeper into the chain of thought technique. We've seen it a little in the beginning. Here on the left-hand side, the question is quite complex. Which mammal species eat birds, which in turn eat insects? So it's not about mammal species eating insects, but eating birds, which in turn eat insects. If you directly put it into the model, I think it was 3.5, GPT 3.5, then the answer is wrong. It's mammal species, but which eat insects, which don't eat birds, which eat insects, because the answer was given too fast. If I force the model on the right-hand side to really step for step think about that, first solve the first step, which bird species eat insects, then which species eat that bird, and which of these species are mammals, it is possible to solve it. And in the end, for instance, it's cats, which is correct, which is one of the possible correct answers. And it's a little bit like thinking fast and slow of Daniel Kahneman, who wrote about the human cognition and told us that we as humans can solve some problems only with a second system of cognitive processing, and this is slow thinking, like step for step thinking and not just pushing out an answer. And if you do something like that, you get usually more accurate, better, more correct answers. This only works if you do the reasoning or the calculation, here in this case, leading before you give the answer. Because the model is giving an answer token by token, which is one token is one word or half of an English word, and it produces its own calculation and then can give the correct answer. It would not work if you do it the other way around. If you have the examples the other way around, that first it gives an answer and then it does a calculation, because the model remembers its own answer, because this is being feedback to it, but it doesn't sort of think about its future tokens and then is able to calculate it into the answer. You have to put everything in the right direction, and the final result should always be in the end. Often just the answer is needed and not this sort of calculation. You just want to know how many balls is it. It's 11. And here you can do something. This chain of thought works as well if you wrap it into a JSON. If you have one field which contains the calculation and one field which contains the result, but it has to be in the right order here again. Next question, I'm talking a little bit about prompt templates here for a RAG process, retrieval augmented generation. Usually, if you're building IT systems, you will not use a static prompts. Usually you can't use a static prompt in an application setup because the answer would always be more or less the same in most setups. Here in this prompt templates, you have two variables. The first is context data you get from a retrieval process, but you could get it from any process. And the other variable is the chat history. What did the user say in his last utterance, and what did the model say in its last utterance, which helps to understand the context. If the user is asking something like, and how do I do that? You can't answer this question without knowing the conversation context, and so you bring in the history. In a conversational system, the template is changed in every turn of the conversation to a real prompt, like with something like this Python statement. And the prompt, which is then finally sent to the model, will look like this. So we substitute the context variable by real context, which we got by scanning the owner's manual or having a retrieval process on the owner's manual. And for the conversation, we have inputted here the last steps of the conversation with the model. Just one note, in my professional prompts, when we're, for instance, analyzing emails or something like that, we are not just dynamizing the context and the conversation, but many aspects, even examples based on some of the parameters. Another technique to greatly improve your prompt is formatting and using delimiters. Some of the models, like many newer OpenAI models, do not need much of these, but if you want to write model-independent prompts, it helps a lot. It makes the prompts more stable in different setups. So you can change the model without changing your success or the answers. First important thing is really to separate different sections, because for the model it's not just clear that here the examples or something are starting if you're just writing in one of the sentences here the examples, but it helps the model to really understand the structure. Structure the future examples if it is possible, like the real desired output. So the model can learn in the future examples how the output is formatted, and put content input into quotes, because then it's easier for the model to identify here the context starts and here the context ends. And what is really important to stop or control prompt injection, put user input into quotes. If you don't do that and have something like a text-based system, the user could put in some harmful code which forces the model to do something completely different. There are examples which work. If you put it into quotes, usually that works way better. Here's an overview, if you put all together, on how the autonomy of a professional prompt could look like, in this case for a conversational prompt. We have an instruction on the top. We have some few shot learning examples. In many prompts, this is the biggest part, to really have the examples for the prompt. We have the data context. Often this is just a variable, so it's not written out, but we have it in a template as a variable and then replace it in the real prompt. We define the output format, and usually it's at the best at the end, we have the conversation history. If we have a conversational prompt, then the model can sort of complete that and go on with the conversation. Again, here you may not need all of that, and you even may need some more section. For instance, sometimes you don't need the output format because you have it in the few-shot learning examples. But you should look at every section if you need it and then put it into your prompts. Next question, if you have a real complex product like a car, one prompt is not enough. A car of the future could act like shown here. It can have a personal conversation with the user, can use world knowledge, tell funny stories, and so on. It's not just answering questions, but asking smart questions as well. It is proactive, like based on triggers. And yeah, takes multi-intent commands and can tell anything about the vehicle and the status. One prompt here is not enough. This will not work with one prompt. You will have a multi-prompt setup. I will not show you this prompting setup because it's quite complex, but a standard multi-prompt approach, how you can get into that. Usually a multi-prompt approach is taking or splitting a monolithic prompt into multiple prompts, providing something like AI microservices to us. So here in a single prompt, we don't say something, we still say something if the user does this, answer with that. If the user asks that, do that. If the user is giving a feedback, do that. But if we split the prompts up, we first do a classification. So we have one prompt doing the classification. What is the user utterance? Is it a question for a step-for-step introduction or instruction? Or is it something like a feedback? Or does he try to do chit-chat with you? And based on these classification, you choose from one of these prompts, like provide step-by-step instruction or provide the technical details. And then if the model is providing the answer, you can post-process the answer with, for instance, another model and check, in some cases, the factual correctness. In a flow, this could look like that. So you have one classification prompt, many answer generation prompts, and for some of the answers, an evaluation prompt. You may not need that, for instance, for chit-chat, because here you don't have to check the factual correctness, but for other lanes, it can be really helpful. If you're splitting up your prompt, it does not have to take much longer. If it altogether has the same number of output tokens, and it can be cheaper because you can have a reduced number of input tokens. So now, maybe as the last thing, let's have a look into the future of prompt engineering. Can the models not just write their own prompts, or at least that is automated prompt engineering, or at least help us to optimize our prompts? What you have to keep in mind, the models are using prompts, but they have no background knowledge on prompt engineering. Like we have no background knowledge about the structure of our brain. Even if we are using this brain every day, we have to read about it in textbooks or something like that. And the model only can help us in prompt engineering if they know a little bit about prompt, and they have to be prompted accordingly to help us with the engineering. I will switch the applications for a moment. A second. Oh no. So if you're asking something like this, I'm doing that in a notebook setup. help me to enhance this prompt template, and I'm sending this to GPT-4. We can have a look at this. It hasn't gotten much better. If we look into it, it's basically more or less the same. It's a little bit more elegant wordings, but more or less the same. So this basically didn't work very well. I'm trying something else. I want to have a prompt on an input output relation, which I don't understand. This is about some biological taxons. I don't know how they relate to each other, and I asked the model to write a prompt to do the same, to reproduce the input-output relation. And here, when I try that, translate the given scientific name into its corresponding higher taxonomic rank, that's exactly the input-output relation. So this worked. We can have a look at that. This I can't really pronounce the Latin name. Fagoidea is basically beech trees, and the super taxon, the next higher level taxon, is really this Fagoidea. And the same goes true for the stork. Here's the family, and here's the next taxon a level higher. But I don't have to know anything about that. I can just put in the data, and the model helps me to build something to set up this relation on an abstract level. And I can continue on that. If I try that prompt, if it really works, for instance, I put that into a real prompt and give as an input mammals, and I can drive that works. And it's core data. We can look it up again, mammalia. And the next level, higher level taxon is really core data. So this worked. And we can continue on that. If we, for instance, say add some few shot examples like we've seen there in our trials to build prompts, this didn't work. But if we are a little bit, and here in the automated prompt engineering, if we are a little bit more specific and really say we need few shot examples, not just add examples to it, this should work. But we have to have a look at it. It now builds a prompt with a few shot example section consisting of just one example. This again is right. I think this is cats, and the upper taxon is then cat-like species. We can look it up later, and we can go on that. And I think I have one more example where we can have more input and output, and have something like off-topic input as well. And we are asking the model to write something which is really considering the off-topic output as well, and put it into the prompt. Can I have a look at that? And this works. So here in the core instruction, it writes the real instruction. It writes the off-topic handling. If the input is not a scientific name, a little bit more correct would be to have biological name. related to taxonomy, output wrong input, like we had here in the examples. And for the few shot examples, it's adding correct few shot examples. They're not super creative, but at last, when I'm looking through it, it's correct. So we can use it to write prompts, even on problems we don't know much, where we have just input and output relation. Maybe as a last example to find that, we have a little bit of a complex problem. We want to have a prompt where I put in a first name, a German first name, and it should guess the age. Yeah, and we want the model to have a prompt for that, and I'm asking it to act as a smart prompt engineer. This takes a little bit, but should work out. And what we see here, it's quite smart in working on the problem, but it's not, the model is not a real good prompt engineer, as we will see in a minute, in the formatting of the prompt. I'm not using the turbo model. This is really taking long. So for instance, when writing a prompt, this is really sweet. It's starting with "Dear model." Yeah, "Dear model, please do that." Yeah, the input-output examples are quite smart. I tried that with a little bit of temperature, so every output is the same. This I didn't see before, but usually it provides valid few-shot examples, which could really prompt another model, a smaller model, for instance. Gertrude could be 80 to 90 years. Felix could be 10 to 20 years. This is invalid input, which is smart to put it into examples. This is something which it can't relate to German names, because it's super exotic for a German name. It's stating the output format, not really correct, because we don't need the input name, because that's something what we put in, but it could provide a starting point for that prompt. Then it's something we could work on, and if we write that down, we maybe would have taken longer to write that prompt. So here I'm finished with automatic prompt engineering, and will get back to my presentation. Last thing, here's some resources where you can learn on prompt engineering, and yeah, have some other resources like examples of prompts and act as and things like that. Please feel free to scan that either, or later everybody, I think, gets the presentation to follow the links. Now I'm finished. Thank you very much. I think we now can have some question. How late is it? We have some minutes left, and there are already, no, this is just welcome to the session. There can be some questions in here. Do you have questions? Something to discuss, or some remarks, or something like that? Do you use something like that? That would be interesting for me in your current practical work, or is this far above or below? Something like that. That would be super interesting. Yeah, please. Yeah, I love problems. Could you speak up a little bit? Then our yeah, that yeah. Yeah, the thing is, put into one prompt as few tasks as possible. And if you have more than one task, then put them into an output format, not just defining the output format, but in your examples that you're really forcing the models to go through all the tasks. Because the model, it just thinks, okay, I take this, I understand this and that and that. Okay, that works, and then it's fine. So if you have many tasks, you really have to force the model in the examples to go through all these tasks. If they are varying, like in some cases it has 3 tasks, in some cases it has 5 tasks or something like that, you have to split the template. This won't work, not on a systematic basis. So it can work, but not above 90% or so. Yeah. Yeah. I would not do that. So why do you have so much? So are your snippets you get back from the retrieval so big, or? And how many snippets do you feed back to the prompt? And does the prompt have to use different snippets to answer one question, or just one, and it has to look for the content? The thing is, if even if you have a big context window like 8K, 40K or something like that, or 32K, usually it gets worse. The answer gets worse if you use a lot of content, of which maybe 80 or 90% are completely irrelevant. So it's just hard for the model to process. So if you have the chance to do some pre-processing, something like what we did in some examples. So we based on the scoring, we took only 8 to 10 snippets out of the content. And if we see in the content, and this can be done by some deterministic processes, you don't have a model for that. If we see in the content, some of the content refers to other content, like links or citing it or quoting content from that, put in that other content via deterministic processes as well. And don't just offer a big, huge amount of content and let the model do all the work. This will still work in something like 80 or 90% of the cases, but for most of the applications, this is just not enough. I don't know, is it a chatbot or something you're building? Yeah, and usually a chatbot with 10% wrong answers you can't use. I would get more specific on that. And one hard thing is, yeah, but I don't know if I really can recommend that. If you have that kind of content, are there ways to automatically extract them, rewrite them, maybe model-based, and then put it into the vector database? For instance, write questions to the content or something like that, and then put it into the vector database. So do some pre-processing for your retrieval data. But yeah, that's everything. You're welcome. Any more questions from your side? Yeah, please. Pardon, yeah. Yeah, there are some things in general. So usually, it depends. So usually, in most business contexts I'm working in, we are not answering based on the pre-training for factual question, because the pre-training could be old, could be outdated, and it can be correct for some things which don't change. For instance, like the biological taxonomy. This won't change, or won't change much in the course of 2 years. Else, when we are working with provided contents like in a RAG process, or if you're bringing content from a database into the prompt and then let the model work on that content, there are plenty of techniques to really compare the content with the answer of the model, and then say, okay, no, this is not answered based on a model. This is hallucinated, or the model got the content wrong. This is not really what the content says, and you can do these kinds of controls, and that's one of the most important things. I think everybody in the field is working at something like that. Super important. And you can do that model based and based on other techniques, really word counts or something like that, or finding the longest snippet which is really corresponding with the content you provided. And you can really bring the hallucination down to 0. That's not something like a goal which never can be achieved. You can do that via this post-processing. So the model still hallucinates, but you see, no, this is not part of the context provided, and then you force or you give the user an answer like, I can't answer this question. This is not provided in my material. Any other question? Just looking if there's some question from the online users. No. Then thank you very much. I would then close the session. Thank you.